Okay, welcome to showcase number 102. Once more, we're sitting on the title screen here. We're going to be here for a second, or a minute, I suppose, while I talk about what's going on today, what we don't have, what we do have, and what's going to go on next showcase as well. I have some good news and some bad news, nothing critical, more just kind of annoying. I'm going to go over the bad news first. We don't have the base animations ready today. I know, I'm very sorry about that. What ended up happening was everything was going great. I just had two small adjustments to make. I wanted it not scaled up, so I wanted the same size as the base sprite, and I didn't want it anti-aliased, so it wouldn't be blurry. Two very straightforward things. The artist did great with those, but I unfortunately also threw in a request to adjust the canvas size, and I worded it in a very confusing way, so I totally take responsibility for that and for why they're not here today. So we ended up with 96 by 96 animations, which is like almost twice the size of the base sprites. So they're even bigger. They look more clear because they're not anti-aliased anymore, but I do take full responsibility for that. I really shouldn't have thrown it in because it's not even something the artist needs to do. It's something that I can do. I just thought the program they're using might have a function for it, and I was curious about it, blah, blah, blah. Basically, I'm the reason that we're going to be waiting another week-ish to see them. But I might post them as soon as I get them this week in the showcase channel, just because you guys have been waiting patiently for so long. Again, this is just annoying. It's not project halting or anything. I can still work on everything else I need to work on. It's not really a delay. It's not costing money. It's just an annoyance, really, genuinely. Other than that, we have primarily good stuff today. I'm really excited to show off the visual effects I've been working on. I put in a shockwave filter, a day-night cycle. The existing day-night cycle has been ripped up out of the ground because I really disliked how I did it, and now we have different phases of the day and of the night. So we have midnight, twilight, dawn, morning, noon, afternoon, evening, etc., dusk, whatever, and each of those has a different period of time that it lasts and how quickly it turns from one to the next, and all these different factors that make it look real pretty, and a bunch of other stuff that I'll talk about when I get to it, as well as some melee stuff relating to spells, specifically melee spells, or weapon spells rather. Generic spell stuff of me bug fixing things that I've changed recently, so we'll talk about that as well when we get to it. And a bunch of saving stuff. It's a little technical, but I think it's pretty cool anyway. I'll go over it briefly right now, and then if you feel like it, you can sit through this to the end. Basically, I wanted people to be able to alter day-night cycles in-game, like admins and so on, and then when you log back in, I wanted them to persist. And just in general, I wanted day-night cycle to persist, obviously, so you don't log out when it's a reboot, rather, and log back in and suddenly it's daytime when it was midnight or something like that, right? So I'll talk about that more in depth when we get to it, but the long and short of it is items save mostly properly now. I have a little bit of work to go with that. And then day-night cycles, map objects, and etc. all save to one area and load up on boot. And that happens before every reboot, so shutdowns now save, which is obviously very good, and players will be soon incorporated into that system as well. So players will also be incorporated, or saved rather, on reboot, and that happens at a process level, which basically means that I literally cannot close the server without literally crashing it. If I'm trying to not save everybody, I have to edit the code to do it, basically. So it's great. I can't screw up on that front. The only way I could is by crashing the game, and that's obviously going to cause a lot more issues. So anyway, I think that that's pretty cool. All that stuff's nice and dandy and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and stop talking now and let you guys get into it. I hope you enjoy, and I hope you look forward to next. Okay, welcome to today's first clip. So we're going to go quickly over things here. I'm going to recenter this for you guys because I understand it's kind of annoying. And we're going to talk a little bit about the cycle system, or the day-night cycle system, whatever you want to call it, as well as a couple other things. The first minor thing, I should say, is clouds now work a little differently. They don't reverse yet, but they have the same icons, or a lot of them have the same icons, right? So I wanted to vary them a little bit. So they have a little parallax, like sometimes they can be like 10 or 20% bigger or smaller, and depending on how big or small they are, they move faster or slower, right? Pretty straightforward, but I wanted to throw that out there just so you guys know, and know that exists. But without further ado, we're going to talk about the cycle system, because that's the big thing here. So previously, this was very simple, very straightforward. It was literally just interpolating, which means kind of smoothly moving between two values. It was a day alpha value and a night alpha value. The gist of that is that it would adjust the darkness of your screen, right? And it would slowly move between, say, 0% intensity and 100% intensity for night, right? and that was okay, but it was not really realistic, right? It didn't look realistic. It was very sudden, and sometimes you'd get like super dark, and it would stay dark for too long, and there's no way to adjust that when you're using that kind of system. So I wanted to uproot that, and I did. Now we have, I think, 7 or 8 phases, or whatever you want to call them, in the cycle, the day-night cycle. There's dawn, morning, noon, afternoon, evening, dusk, and I believe midnight and twilight. And, excuse me, those are all individually defined, which means some of them last for longer than others, some of them last for shorter periods of time than others, and they all have their own individual brightnesses. So you can see midnight is very dark, and then in a second it'll turn to twilight and get brighter, and then that'll last for maybe 2 hours, or sorry, two. I guess I should just say 2 because it's a multiplier, right? And we can adjust that in game with /update cycle speed as an admin, of course. And this is basically what it multiplies by, and it's in milliseconds. So 1,000 milliseconds is 1 second. So if we say, I don't know, 15,000, we'll see immediately that it takes much longer to get through these. And this is something that you can adjust at any point in time. There's no progression here, so there's nothing to worry about interrupting. So if you change it to suddenly take 7 hours or something to get through dawn, or to get through any time period, right? It doesn't matter. It's not going to break anything. It works dynamically around that. So if we change this back to like 150, we'll see it goes really fast, and it'll almost immediately change in any second here. If I didn't typo, I think I might have. There we go. Yeah. Okay. I must have. You guys have the record, so you can see. But anyway, so you can go very clearly and see that the cycle speed can be anywhere from a matter of literal hours or days to literal seconds, basically, and it'll cycle smoothly and it'll never really encounter errors. There's also a minimum of, I think, 50 or 100 milliseconds per period, but there's no point in time where we'll ever reach that for any reason, so that's okay. It's not a big deal. I'm going to quickly update the cycle speed back to something really high so it stays at this sort of brightness. And the reason it's still fading is because it wasn't completely done the transition already. So it finished, and then now we're here. But anyway, the reason I'm doing this is because I wanted to show you guys how the fading works. So if I walk into this map over here, you'll see that the brightness stays about the same. Oh, I'm sorry, actually, this was a map I did testing on. So this is a map I set to extreme darkness. I was wondering why that happened, but I was doing testing on this server iteration earlier. So anyway, if I go down here to the map below this one, you'll be able to see pretty clearly that it stays the same amount of darkness. And I guess it's kind of hard with the space, but you get the idea. So the darkness persists, or the brightness persists through maps, which is obviously pretty important. And what you saw recently was one of the exhibitions of me changing the map alphas manually. So I can say, I don't know, we'll put this to something extremely dark, like 0.95 or something, and you'll be able to see immediately it's extremely dark, probably even black on YouTube. And if we walk down here, suddenly it's very bright. So that's kind of a minor thing, but I felt like it was pretty important to show off anyway, so you guys know how that works. And if you want proof, I can type this real quick and see 0.4 down here, and that's what twilight is, or the twilight value. And if we type get map alpha up here, we see it's 0.95. So that's just that. And if we type reset map alpha, we can free this map from its prison here, or at least we should be able to. It might have to be... Oh, I see. I have to put in a name. I apologize. These commands I originally made quite a while ago, so they're a little wonky, and sometimes they don't work exactly as you might expect. But as you can see, it just takes a minute, and then it flashes back to whatever it was. So that's an admin tool. If you want, for whatever reason, to adjust one map's specific brightness during daytime or whatever, then you can do that, and it's fairly straightforward. It's kind of an event tool, I guess, as well. And this also plays into one of the VFX I guess effects that I was working on as well, which I'm not going to show off today because it's a little complicated and it doesn't work exactly like I wanted to yet. But to give you the rundown of it, I'm very happy about it. And basically, if two really high level people fight each other and they manage to do a large portion of each other's HP at the same time, the entire map will flash daytime briefly, which I know is very anime and very gimmicky, but I'm quite a fan of it, so I hope you guys will be too whenever I get the chance to show that off. But anyway, I think that we're done with this portion of the showcase. I think we'll move on to spells next. That seems kind of reasonable, and from there, I don't know, I'll figure it out. So, hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope... Okay, so one of the things I wanted to talk about today were spells, and you might say, well, why do we even need to talk about spells? You know, we already have most of the spells except for the weapon spells. The answer is bugs, and most of them aren't that bad. They're not really that severe, but there were a couple of them here and there because I had adjusted spell behaviors without adjusting the spells that use those behaviors, so I fixed those up, I polished them off, and I've, generally speaking, made them look normal again. There's still a couple bugs relating to alignment, so like it doesn't always line up with the player correctly, but I don't really care about that as much, primarily because honestly we're about to exchange the base anyway, so we'll need to readjust all of those then, so I'm just kind of leaving it. So if you see something that's not aligned, that's why. I just haven't taken the time to fix it because I'm going to have to fix it again in like less than a couple days anyway. So whatever the case, without further ado, the first ones I want to talk about were kind of the most intensive visually, because I'm sure people were wondering about those. They still work fine and everything. They work as you'd expect they would. So they also follow you through the map, but I won't show that just yet, because I want to show off, what is it called? I believe it's called Vine Siphon, yeah. So anyway, Vine Siphon works like you would expect it would. Again, the alignment thing is just because I recently realigned this player, so it's already kind of out of whack, and then soon we're going to change it again. Excuse me. We're going to change it again anyway, so I feel it's not really that necessary to fix all of them before we have to fix them again. So that's my reasoning for that. We can't show off Geospike because we don't have any targets over here, so I'll do that in a second. Tremor, pretty straightforward, same deal. A little misaligned, but not too bad. That's been fixed up, and it works a little more efficiently than it did before. One of the big things I've done is reworked particle trails, so those are way more efficient now. That's just kind of a generic thing, but whatever the case, Fireball, I don't think I really even need to show this one off, but I will, for the sake of it. And then Overcharge is on 4. So this is also pretty straightforward. It's actually correctly aligned, which is because I fixed this one, and that's kind of when I decided. But one of the other things is that because it's misaligned, the particles aren't spawning properly. That's something I'll worry about later. But I fixed a bunch of bugs with this one, particularly with how it works. Like, it reduces your health regen, as you can see down here. So if I go over here, you can see it decreases here as well. And as it hits negatives, previously it wouldn't actually detract from your HP, so now it subtracts, which is how you'd expect it to work. Previously, how it was working was if you were at max HP, it wouldn't bother healing you because there's no reason, obviously. And if you're at max HP, it counts negative HP regen as a heal because it's still HP regen. So it's just a negative heal, and it was kind of getting caught up there. But as you can see, this works properly now, and you can, infinitely scale your endless amounts of negative HP and plus meta. So that's all cool. That's great. Whatever. We're going to head right over to the left map here and check out the NPCs I was talking about and hit them with a couple spells here and there. One thing I do want to change is, actually I might not be able to right now. I think this is top left. Okay, maybe I might be wrong on that, but whatever the case, these are down here, so we'll have to use this map. I apologize if it's a little dark. That'll have to be fixed later. I got it stuck in this position somehow. I forget exactly how, but I was bug fixing stuff and they got stuck this way, so whatever the case, it's not that important. I think you'll be able to see this pretty clearly anyway. If not, I can always go back and fix that. So the two spells I want to show off here are Blinding Jabs, which I showed off a little bit before, as well as Swipe. Same case there, I also showed it off a little bit, but they're still quite a bit new. So what I've done is I've made them work by kind of modern fighter logic in terms of hitboxes. So now Swipe works like you'd expect it would. You hit it, it hits them once, it doesn't hit them multiple times. It does need to be chopped down in terms of duration a little bit, but other than that it's fine. So you see it does 1 tick of damage. It's currently doing a ton of damage because my level is really high, and I'll get to that in a second on why that matters, but the other thing I wanted to show is obviously Blinding Jabs, and it's dealing a crap load of HP as well, which again I need to explain, but I will get to that in a moment. The gist of this is just that the sword now works properly like you expect it would, and doesn't hit them multiple times. It will only hit one thing once, and if someone walks into it while it's still active, they'll get hit as well. So you can still get hit after it's created, which is sort of important to me. I might alter that or change it or screw with it in the future, but for right now it is what it is. And again, this does a crazy amount of damage. So why is that doing so much damage? It's pretty straightforward. I don't know exactly if this is incorporating it. No, it's not yet. Okay. So it doesn't incorporate this into the prediction just yet, but the reason it's doing a crazy amount of damage is because if we go back into the stats menu and look at my level, I am currently, wherever that is, level 560, which is obscenely high. And what I've done is it now scales your unaspected damage, because I realized if I don't scale unaspected damage like weapon damage, then it either one-shots lobies and doesn't do anything to high people, or it one-shots everybody. So I needed it to scale, and what I decided to do with that is make it so that your level just makes it scale flatly. So if you're level 100, your unaspected damage, aka swipe or whatever else, blinding jabs down here, these spells do 100% more damage, so 2 times damage, right? So with every level you gain 1% extra damage. So I am dealing currently something like 560% extra damage on that. That's why it's happening and why it's so huge. So that's not really unintended, I would say. I should probably cap it, but also no one's really ever going to get this far, so it's not that big of a deal. And if it does happen, I'll have plenty of time to to watch it happen, basically. Everything after 100 will take quite a while, so it's not the most pressing issue right now, is my point. Anyway, the whole idea is that as you level up now, your weapon damage goes up with it, so you can expect the appropriately fitting numbers to increase and so on. The other spells here, I'm not sure. I think Arrow Shot, which is the first one here, Arrow Shot, I think this one works. I don't know entirely. I would have to check the code specifically, but if I just go ahead and hit, okay, so it does basically what you'd expect it would. It's not anything super special. It's meant to just be a low cooldown, like consistent hit, right? Low range arrow shot, and it is, again, like I said, misaligned like a lot of things out of the showcase, but that's fine. So it just shoots an arrow that slowly curves towards the target. One thing that I should mention about that is it currently curves towards it constantly. In actuality, it's just going to set angles once, so it's just going to set its angle to begin with when you're first casting it, I guess, or shooting the arrow, and then it won't continue to angle toward the target. So it's not going to chase them down, basically, is my point. That's intended, because it's meant to be not reliable, just short range and very low cooldown. This Seeking Bolt is all over the place currently, I think. I don't think this is finished. Basically, bow I need to work on more, but it seems to have a range. Okay, well, so currently it sort of works. It needs an icon, and also it has a really high turning rate right now, which is not the point. It's meant to be a sort of looping thing that takes wide berthing turns, so we'll see about that. But generally speaking, the consensus on weapon spells are the same, most of them. They're basically done in terms of functionality. They just need to be tweaked, adjusted, realigned, etc., etc. And I think the final one that I wanted to show off today was Executioner's Ring, which is possibly too expensive for me, so I need to level up a bunch and purchase this and drag it down here, and we'll be able to see this. Now, whether or not this works is completely unknown, so you'll be seeing this the first time with me. It's probably also gonna, okay, it is working, and we killed him. So that's Executioner's Ring. You have noticed probably by now that the swords are a different sword icon. I think I'm probably going to have that replaced by the player sword icon, which I think would be pretty cool. We'll see about that, I don't know, but it would be pretty easy to do, so we'll see. The other thing I wanted to mention was you are not capable of using these spells if you don't have the equipped item. I have that turned off, clearly, because I didn't want to have to go through the whole process of crafting and getting and blah blah blah, a sword and a spear and etc. But just for future reference, in the actual game, you won't be able to use these without a sword or a spear or bow or whatever respective weapon they are. So you can't swipe if you don't have a sword, you can't blinding jabs if you don't have a spear, etc. But anyway, I think that we're good on this clip. It's about where I wanted it to be, so I apologize for this one being kind of long, but we had a bunch of stuff to go over, so I hope you appreciate that, and I hope you look forward to the next clip, whatever that is. It's probably going to be the last one, so thank you. Okay, welcome to the final clip of the showcase. I'm pretty excited about this one, mainly because it poses some juicy mechanics for us. If you aren't aware of the term juice, it's kind of very common in the game development community. It's basically the term people use to describe how good combat feels, how good the game feels, how good movement feels, that kind of thing. So I'm pretty hyped for that, and I have a system set up so I can quickly show off to you guys each of the different VFX things I've added, and I'll briefly explain what they're doing and what they're there for and how they'll be experienced. So the first one is going to take nighttime, so I'm going to quickly update the cycle speed as I showed you in an earlier clip, and we will zoom ahead to midnight, and as soon as that happens, we'll stop it again. I think we can probably stop at dusk, actually, because it's a little too jarring currently when it's midnight. And what I'm about to show you, and I apologize for the chests everywhere. What I'm about to show you is it's a brief flash of daytime. This is something that I've noticed is very common in a lot of fight scenes, not just in anime, but in general, where you have very powerful people fighting. That there's a light so bright that it turns everything daytime briefly, or something like that, or like just as bright as daytime. So I thought that would be a really cool thing to add for really high-end fighting, right? Because if you have two really high-level people fighting, then you want them to be kind of noticed by everyone around. And I probably will restrict it to like dangerous fights or something. That way you don't have to constantly experience it just when you're sparring as two high-level people. But anyway, it might be a toggler, whatever, I don't know. But currently the intended setup for this is if you are two high-level people and you deal a substantial amount of each other's HP to each other around the same time with one tick of damage, like two colliding big attacks basically, you will cause the entire map to do this, which will happen in 2 seconds. It'll just flash briefly. So the intention here is that the big chunk of damage you do happens somewhat frequently, so it's sort of like multiple flashes or whatever. And it needs to be tweaked a lot. It's not perfect, and it's a little kind of strange. I'll probably make it more sudden to begin and then fade out a little slower. I don't know. But anyway, the idea is clear. So even if it isn't complete and it isn't done being tuned yet, I wanted to show it to you guys because I know a lot of people like anime and they probably will appreciate that concept. The other thing is a shockwave. So we're going to quickly go back to a very quick cycle speed so we can get back to daytime, and then I'll set it to something high. I want it to be a little brighter, because it's a little hard to see what's happening when it's so dark. So when I hit spacebar twice, the shockwave will happen, and it's a little funny because it includes the player base sprite, so it looks kind of meme-like or whatever, the deep fried memes. But I still think it's a cool concept, and for the record, this will happen when you do a monumental amount of someone's HP. So I think 20% of someone's max HP in one tick of damage will cause a shockwave, likely much less substantial than this one. This one currently goes across the entire screen, but I'm most likely going to restrict it to like a smaller box and then have it expand as you do more of their HP, if that makes sense. So if you do a 20% tick of their HP, or damage tick of their max HP or whatever, it'll have a much smaller shockwave comparatively to a much larger, like 50% of their max HP damage tick or whatever, if that makes sense. Same thing with this, which is going to be screen shake. This is a little too intense right now, even for the minor one, but essentially every time I hit spacebar past 3, it'll give me a larger and longer screen shake effect. So if I just spam it, you'll see a very intense screen shake. This will happen if you're hit by a sort of major, kind of minor, like 10% of your max HP damage tick, something like that, and it only happens for you. So you're the only one seeing this happen, and people around you, if you get hit hard enough, will see a very minor screen shake. But again, I'm trying to keep this kind of controlled because I know a lot of people don't like screen shake. If you do not like screen shake, we have a screen shake config here, so you can toggle that on and off at your leisure. It's there for a reason, and I'll probably include other screen effects toggles as well, so you don't have to toggle them all on and off. Maybe you like the daytime flashing, but you dislike the screen shake or whatever. I know some people get vertigo and that kind of thing, so whatever the case, that's that. I don't think I need to explain it too much more. It's relatively straightforward, but I feel like it's cool stuff that I should be showing off anyway. I seem to have toggled off screen shake by accident. Oh, that's interesting. So if I toggle it back on, it saves it. I've never seen that happen before, actually. You learn something new every day. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. I apologize again for not having the base animations. I'm not going to say they'll be here next showcase because that seems like a curse at this point, but I promise they will be here soon, and I've actually gotten to more private contact with the artists, which means Discord basically. That way I can talk to them more easily. Email kind of just takes a while. You have a couple hours before each message, so it takes a very long time to get relatively simple stuff done. It's just not a fault of theirs or mine. It's just kind of how email works typically, so that'll be fixed, quote unquote fixed. It's more of a communication issue, but whatever the case, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys look forward to the next showcase and to the game launching sometime soon, hopefully. I appreciate all of your support, and I hope you have